put at the end of session 2, we've got conflict between the relatives, two wives, Leah and Rachel. So they're sisters-in-law, if you like. We've got sisters-in-law in conflict. Then there's also the story, which I won't be elaborating on. You've got the story of Laban, Rachel's dad. So you've got a father and daughter story in Genesis 31 where they don't seem to get along. The daughter doesn't get along with the father. You've got the story in Genesis 30 to 31 of Laban and Jacob, the uncle and nephew. I'll say a bit about that when we talk about Jacob now. But you've got an uncle and nephew relationship. You know, earlier we were talking about two brothers. You've got Cain and Abel. You've got parents and their children. So there are a lot of relationship. The book of Genesis covers a lot of different relationships and the struggles that we have in our relationships. I think that's meant for us to think about. If you look at the dysfunctions and the problems that these families have in Genesis, if we are wise and humble, it's supposed to spur us to reflect about our own relationships and how would we manage and would we be able to manage any better. And so what might we do? Is there something that we could do to learn from this so that we can be more of a blessing to our families, our children, our brothers, our siblings, our uncles, rather than a burden to them? Right? We want to be blessings rather than burdens. Let me pause because I didn't have time to offer that to you. Any questions on session 2 that you would like me to try and address before I go into session 3, where I will say a bit more about Jacob. Anyone, any questions on session 2? Yes, Andrew.
Thank you, Reverend Gordon. I was just trying to figure out for myself who would be the source of God's blessings for the promise to Hagar. The source of God's blessings for Hagar to make her to make the descendants to grow her side of her family. When God's promises to Hagar was in verses 16, verse 10 to 12.
Yes.
I will increase your descendants.
Yes.
And so in trying to determine that, I found a commentary that after Sarah passed away, Keturah, right?
Yes, another of Abraham's wife.
Yeah, that she would, another name for her was actually Hagar. So would it be,
You don't have to go that way. No, but your question is, what is the source of blessing? So I'm trying to understand God was the one who gave Hagar the assurance that her son will have many descendants, right?
Well,
so God is the source of the blessing. But what are you asking me? Who did Ishmael marry?
No, I'm actually thinking Hagar would be the mother of many other children as well.
Oh, I see. So who are Hagar's other children?
Well, who would be Hagar's husband, so to speak?
Well, Hagar's husband to get Ishmael was Abraham. So you are wondering whether that blessing meant Hagar would have another husband later and other children. The biblical text doesn't tell us. But the blessing of many descendants that Hagar had was through Ishmael. And the Bible does talk about Ishmael and his children. And we will come to that. Just like you have the genealogy, it's quite interesting that the Genesis also includes Ishmael's 12 tribes. Just like Isaac, and later Jacob will have 12 tribes. We're going to have Ishmael with his 12 tribes. Yeah, and that's going to be in Genesis. I think it will come up.
Because I was just reading some commentaries that says that some Jewish commentators have identified Hagar with Keturah, the woman that Abraham married after the death of Sarah.
Yes.
And so whether Abraham would actually have been the father of the descendants of via Hagar.
But you don't need to connect Abraham with, you don't need to connect Keturah with Hagar in order for that statement that Abraham is the father of Ishmael. Because Abraham is the father of Ishmael through Hagar already. I mean, so that point that Abraham is the source of the Arabic world, which is correct. They do look to Abraham as the source through Ishmael. That is there, whether or not you connect Hagar to Keturah. Right? So I'm not sure whether that helps with. But if you're asking me my position on do I think Hagar was Keturah and Keturah was another name for Hagar, my guess is no. Because why would the text doesn't say so. I mean I think that commentator is probably trying to get away from the fact or the way the story saying that Abraham had so many wives. But I think you can't escape that Abraham did have more than one wife. And so did Jacob. So that it was the way, it was not against the law in the days of the patriarchs. Okay? Yes, but Mita.
Because we are in this session on Ishmael and Isaac, so I thought it would be appropriate to ask this question. The law came in force after Moses implemented it. So there is this law that Moses mentioned that a despised son, if the firstborn despised son, there is this law that the blessing should rightfully belong to the despised first son. Does it apply in this case since Moses came after Genesis?
Okay, I'm trying to. You're asking the question because the Bible, not just the Bible, in general, in ancient times, in ancient biblical times, the firstborn has certain privileges and rights.
This was not found in Genesis, the book of Genesis, but this was only implemented when Moses was called by God, and it has all these ethical rules and daily living laws, the regulations for the Israelites. So does it apply to Isaac? No, does it apply to Ishmael since it was before Moses?
Okay, thank you. Let me try and understand what you're asking. Ishmael was biologically Abraham's firstborn. So you're asking, since in Moses' time, the firstborn has certain privileges and rights, did that Mosaic statement apply in the time of Genesis?
Yes.
I think the answer is yes. And even in Genesis, you've got the story of Jacob and Esau. Of course, they're twins, but Esau technically is the firstborn, right, in the story, whether it's by a few minutes or whatever. But you remember, he has the birthright. He has the blessing. And the story of Jacob and Esau is how Jacob grabs the birthright from his son. So even in the story of Genesis, there is the assumption that the firstborn has certain rights. So the answer is yes.
Actually, the firstborn has double portion of blessing.
Correct, yes. So the answer is yes.
So that means Ishmael's descendant will have double portion as well.
If that custom was observed.
Does it still apply?
Just because there is a rule and a principle doesn't mean. I mean, things may not always work out according to rules. The husbands are supposed to love their wives, and wives are supposed to love their husbands, but it doesn't always work out like that either. No, so I'm asking, automatically, do things happen in God's provision?
Yes.
So that's. I could answer yes, because quite clearly in terms of, but it depends on how you assess blessing and double portion blessing.
Yeah.
Has the Arabic world been blessed? See, it really depends on how you assess that question. Are they a blessed nation or are they a not blessed nation? In some ways, I would say they are a blessed nation.
Yes, indeed, right? I agree with you. Yeah. But then, when Yeshua comes about, there is this grace period, and it probably will terminate when the grace period expires.
So
this is another issue. This is another issue.
I think the Bible speaks to us, and we must beware trying to treat what is there in the Bible as if they are automatic, irreversible sort of statements, and fatalistically this is what is going to happen. And I'm going to make a bit of a comment about that. For instance, is the blessing irrevocable? If a blessing is pronounced, does it mean it automatically is going to take place no matter what happens? And I'm going to suggest to you that the story of Jacob and Esau makes us question that sort of simplistic idea that just because God says something, no matter what we do or do not do, it's automatically going to happen. The Bible doesn't teach that kind of superstitious, deterministic, fatalistic kind of idea. It always speaks words to try and challenge us to think, how ought we therefore to live? How ought we to relate with people? And it's meant to encourage us to relate in a way that is good and fair and with mercy and compassion. Okay, so I think that might come out a bit if we move through here. Maybe to save time, rather than me read through again the content summary, it's all there in your notes. I won't be able to go through all of the chapters, but there are a lot of familiar stories there in Genesis, all there in your content. Let me just go and focus on what I have, then decided to focus more on the session, and then we can get to the question time again. Okay, so now we look at Genesis chapter 27, and you've got the story of Isaac and Rebekah. I say a story of Isaac and Rebekah, but it relates, of course, to their children. They are blessed with twin boys, Esau and Jacob. And quite clearly in the story, Esau is daddy's boy. It explicitly says that Isaac, the dad, favors Esau, whereas Rebekah, mommy, favors Jacob. And so parenting 101, you've got the competing schemes of Isaac and Rebekah. Just a few things in that story to remind you, make you think further, perhaps that didn't come out when you read it first in your Sunday school days. It's worth asking the question, why was Father Isaac, speaking to Esau alone in Genesis chapter 27? This is where Isaac comes to Esau and says, I want to give you a blessing. So I'm getting along in years and I want to give you a blessing. What is going on here? Was this a deathbed blessing? We know that as a custom, later even in the story of Genesis, Jacob, when he's very old, about to die, he calls all his 12 sons together and he pronounces the blessing of them in chapter 49 of Genesis. So that was the custom. But if you're giving your so-called final blessing just before you die, you have all your children together. Here in the Genesis 27 story, Isaac says, I'm getting old, so it sounds as if it's going to be like a deathbed blessing. But he only calls one son, Esau. Jacob isn't even there. So it doesn't look like this is the normal father's final word to all his children kind of blessing. This is another example of Isaac, because he favors Esau, is again doing something quietly. Hey, Esau, I want to say something special to you that I don't want to. Again, another example of that favoritism. And so, it leads to all kinds, and has led to all kinds of problems already. Not only that, in the story, Isaac doesn't die for another 20 years. So, okay, maybe he thought he was going to die soon, but he didn't. Right? But anyway, this suggests that this probably was not anyway his deathbed blessing to all his children. Okay? He still lives on for another 20 years before he eventually dies. So it's worth thinking about that. And what was Rebekah doing? Of course, we normally, when we read this story, Rebekah overhears Isaac saying he wants to bless Esau, go and get an animal, cook it for me, and then I'm going to give you a great blessing. Rebekah overhears this, remember, in the story, and says, okay, Jacob, quickly, I will cook the food for you. You pretend to be Esau, and then you go and get the blessing. I hope you're familiar with this story. If you're not, it's a great story. Go back and read Genesis chapter 27. I just want to comment on the point. What was Mummy Rebecca trying to do? Because we look on her fairly negatively in this story, usually. And I think, I suppose it's part of that negative favoritism that I've already talked about. But to be fair to Rebecca, let's try and be a little bit more understanding of Rebecca. Could she, for instance, have been thinking like this? Remember, in chapter 25, verse 23, when she has these twins, she's carrying these twins, she hears God say, let's turn to it, that God is going to bless the younger rather than the elder, right? We're going to put the younger first, Genesis 25, 23, let me quickly, I don't have it up there for you, but let me quickly read it. Genesis 25, 23. The two babies in verse 22 are jostling within her womb. Why is this happening to me? She says. She went to pray to the Lord, and then verse 23, the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 people from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other. The older will serve the younger. So I wonder whether Rebecca said, hey, I remember this word. The older boy is going to serve the younger boy. That means the Lord wants to, she might reason, the Lord wants the younger one to have the bigger blessing. So maybe, she's too literalist scripture reader. She said, hey, now Esau wants to put his greater blessing on Esau, but God said the younger one must get it, so I better try and help God's word come true. I better try and arrange things to make Jacob, I better help God out, make sure Jacob gets the blessing from Esau. Could she have had that distorted view of trying to help God fulfill his promise? Could she be trying to save the family money from Hittite women? In chapter 26, verses 33 to 34, those 2 short verses, we're given a glimpse again into the family life. Esau, both Isaac and Rebekah wish that their boys will not marry Hittite women. Want them to marry within their own sort of. So I really hope they don't go and marry Hittite women. And Esau understands that they feel like that, and almost, we have a picture of Esau almost to spite his mother, because remember the mother is not his favorite, right? Mother favored the other one. Maybe Esau didn't like the mother for the fact that she didn't really seem to care for him as much as brother Jacob. He goes and marries a Hittite woman. But he goes out and marries So could Rebecca be thinking, don't marry the Hittite. If the blessing, the double portion of Isaac's blessing goes to Esau, is it going to go to the Hittite family and all those in-laws? That's no good, that's no good. I don't know. I'm just trying to think, in a sense, sympathetically for Rebecca as a mom who wants the best for what she believes is the best for her son and her family or her family wealth. We don't want it, going outside. And so all these things make us sometimes do quite really silly things. Because surely we all agree that her deception, her encouraging Jacob to go about with this deception, can't have been a good thing, right? But it happened. Okay? So let me just quickly say, it's of course very easy for us when we read their stories to criticize on hindsight what kind of dysfunctional parents were they. But like I said, what loving foolishness do we sometimes commit? We justify it for all kinds of reasons of self-preservation, self-protection, self-promotion of our own family and our own needs. Sometimes that can blind us and we end up doing silly things which on hindsight we may look back and say, what on earth was I thinking back then? May the Lord save us from that kind of foolishness. Let's move on. There's a story of Jacob and Esau for us to consider. So that deception goes through. Jacob comes, pretends to be Esau. Isaac, his father, is blind, so can't really tell that in fact this is not Esau. funny. Your voice sounds not like Esau anymore, but you feel hairy like Esau. So he gives a blessing to Jacob, right? So you know that story. And the blessing, the words are recorded in chapter 27, verse 28. Isaac thinks he's pronouncing this blessing on his favored son Esau, but actually now it's the younger son, younger by just a few minutes, but anyhow, younger son Jacob, who is disguised as Esau. And the blessing that is pronounced is, may God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness. Later, Esau comes back with the animal, the cooked food, and then realizes, hey, my blessing has already been given to my other horrible brother who tricked. And in the end, Esau asks his father for a blessing, right? And these are the words that are now given by Isaac to Esau. And they sound, and the way NIV puts it, your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness and away from the dew of heaven above. Can you see the vocabulary there? It's very similar to the vocabulary that was used for Jacob. But the NIV rendering it's the opposite. So the blessing has already gone to Jacob. Heaven's dew and earth's richness. And so Isaiah is saying, I got no more blessing to give you. And so for you, you will be away from the earth's richness and away from the dew of heaven above. And it strikes a very sad picture for Esau. He was deceived by Jacob, and therefore in the end he doesn't get a blessing. It's almost like he gets a no blessing kind of statement. What is interesting though, so try and stay awake with me, I know it's tiring, is again this translation is disputed. Because once again we're dealing with prepositions, and what I put in yellow, away from, that NIV uses, may not in fact mean that. It could be, then look at the King James Version for instance, of the blessing that was given to Esau. Behold, your dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, in other words, the earth's richness, and of the dew of heaven from above. In other words, this sounds like exactly what he said to Jacob too. You shall enjoy heaven's dew and earth's richness. The Tanakh, Jewish English translators done by Jews, see, and this is talking to Esau, remember, your abode shall enjoy the fat of the earth and the dew of heaven above. In other words, if we take this translation, and once again, it just has to do with how you deal with the preposition, this is a legitimate translation. What Esau does essentially is to say a similar thing to his son Esau. He wanted to say that to Esau in the first place anyway. Jacob sort of tricked him. Esau comes. Isaac now says the same sort of thing to Esau. So in other words, it makes us think, did Jacob in fact get a better blessing from Isaac? So it could well be that the answer is, in terms of words, pretty similar. Right? Pretty similar. Another thing we ought to consider is, if you look at the story of Jacob and Esau, if you understand the blessing for Jacob as one that was superior to the blessing given to Esau, and in one respect it might seem so, because in addition, apart from the words, the same words are blessed you with earth's riches and heaven's dew, Esau does seem to reinforce this idea that your younger brother, you will serve your younger brother. But think about that story. Was this fulfilled on earth? Jacob's blessing that he would receive, disguised as Esau, may nations serve you, and may peoples bow down to you. Be the Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother, in other words, your brothers, bow down to you. So in that blessing that Isaac gave to Jacob, it sounded like, in addition to the earth's richness and the heaven's dew, which he probably repeated to his other son, he said, you will be served by your brothers. Right? May your brothers serve you. May May nations serve you, peoples bow down to you, may you be master over your brothers. But in the story, does Jacob ever rule over his brother Esau? I mean, in their story, no. Right? He runs away from Esau, he comes back, and in fact, he bows down to Esau. Remember when they come back? When Jacob comes back, so afraid, does Esau still hate me? Does he still want to kill me? Please, gives Esau lots of gifts. Jacob bows down 7 times to Esau. So in his life story, Jacob was never the lord of his brother Esau, even though that was Isaac's words given to him, disguised as Esau, right? But given to Jacob, disguised as Esau. I'm sorry if you don't know the story, this must be really confusing to you all that I'm trying to say now. But those of you who know the story, I think you follow what I mean. But my point is, the words that were spoken to Jacob by Isaac did not get fulfilled, literally, in his life. Jacob never ruled over Esau. If anything, Jacob was the one who bowed down to Esau. So those words didn't automatically somehow, because they were pronounced. Too bad you thought I was Esau, but you pronounced it on me means I get it. That's not what happened in the story. Okay? So it makes us ask the question, do we really pick up this idea that blessings, once spoken upon someone, automatically have to come true? They are irreversible. We somehow picked up this impression because Isaac's response seems to support this idea, right? Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you. I have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you now, my son? And Esau pleads with his father, don't you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Esau wept aloud. But then he goes on, and in the end he pronounces what could be, in fact, the same sort of blessing of the earth's richness and the heavens due upon Esau as he intended to. Although he does add, and you shall serve your brother, and when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck. So his blessing is, you will end up serving your brother, because that's what I already said earlier to Jacob. And so you are going to serve him, but don't worry, you're going to break his yoke. You're going to break free of that control. Well, certainly Esau did. He never really actually served Jacob. And he certainly broke free, although if he never really served, there was nothing to break free from. I'm just trying to make the point, if you think about the way the story unfolds, it does not give us a picture of once a blessing is spoken, it's automatically going to take place. It just didn't happen. And so we shouldn't try and develop our own theology on this. There are some popular teachers that very simplistically say that, the power of the spoken word, once it's spoken, it's sure to happen. And then it can develop a very superstitious kind of thinking about, it was spoken, it's going to happen, and it can lead to a lot of stupid decisions and ways of life and acting. The Bible doesn't teach this. Certainly this Genesis story doesn't teach this. Okay. Blessings once spoken do not automatically take place. On earth, Esau was never subservient to Jacob, despite the blessing of the words in chapter 27, verse 29. As I told you, later in life, Jacob comes and he bows down to the ground 7 times as he approaches his brother Esau. Chapter 33, verse 3. Not only Jacob bowing down to Esau, Jacob's wives, Leah and Rachel, and his children all bow down to Esau. So it's Jacob bowing down to Esau. Okay, so as I've already made the point, let's please not develop a superstitious theology, a fatalistic theology, where we think that blessings or curses, once spoken, no hope are sure to take place. That's not the way the Bible makes us think about blessings and curses. That is not to mean that blessings or curses are useless. No. Words that you speak have the power to encourage or really discourage people, right? You can, by speaking a word, a positive word, it can encourage a person positively, help them to hang on maybe and to persevere. So I'm not saying that blessings or curses are of no consequence. I think we all know that words are very powerful. We need to be careful because they are powerful. It has the potential to make a person feel very discouraged or very encouraged. And so we ought to be careful what words we speak. But that's different from saying that the words automatically, if you say it, they're going to take place. Because you may speak an encouraging word, but sometimes that person just doesn't get the encouragement or whatever, can't hear it and remains in their depression or in their rebellion. You can speak a word of condemnation, and thankfully sometimes the person is able not to be put down by that and is able to rise above that criticism and condemnation that you have pronounced. But certainly we ought to be, as the book of Proverbs again and again says, careful about what we speak, because our words have the potential to bring healing or to bring destruction and hurt. And we want to be those whose words are words of blessing rather than words of curse. Okay? So we understand the power that words have, spoken over anyone, particularly maybe over children. For some reason, perhaps it's obvious, what our parents say to us do matter a lot more than what even pastors or strangers or friends might say. What they say also is helpful, but if your parents say something to you, we tend to take that, it means much more to us, and therefore it's a greater influence upon us. Maybe some of you have your own stories about that. Maybe some of you come from backgrounds where you always felt as if one parent never thought much of you. You may have misunderstood your parent, but because you thought your parent didn't think much of you or said something, you may have had difficulty coping with that. Anyway, so I suspect we understand this. If we are parents, may the Lord give us wisdom, things that we say or do not say to our children. If we are children, yes, I know how difficult it is to rise above the negative things that may have been said about us. But remember, just because words are spoken doesn't mean automatically that's going to happen. You can, by God's grace, rise above unfair criticism and condemnation. You can hear words of encouragement and be inspired and progress further. Let me get through the stories, then take the questions. I think that will be safer to make sure I get through the material and get to finish the blanks. Okay? A story about Rebecca. I've already mentioned her. This is when we are first introduced to Rebecca in chapter 24. I said this is the longest chapter in Genesis for whatever reason. Although, to be fair, the chapter division is a later invention. We only did that in the 13th century AD. But as it stands now in our Bible, this is the longest chapter in Genesis. And it's all about how someone goes and looks for a wife for Isaac. Abraham's servant goes and looks for a wife. It's a delightful story of how he prays for guidance. Please lead me to a good woman who will be a great wife for my master's son, Isaac. And then there is this blessing at the end of the chapter. They blessed Rebekah and said to her, "Our sister, may you increase to thousands upon thousands. May your offspring possess the cities of their enemies." So it's a very positive blessing upon Rebekah that her life will be abundant. So it's like, wow, Rebekah, and she, in chapter 24, she's a beautiful girl. She's helpful. She helps a stranger at a well to give him water, etc. So she's a great girl in chapter 24. Wonderful blessing at the end of the chapter. Her future is mapped out for her. It sounds so positive, if you like. She's going to be get this blessing as good as a blessing that Abraham received almost, right? To get thousands upon thousands. But then now think about the way her life plays out, at least as it's described here for us in Genesis. Two poignant cries of Rebecca later in her life. She cries over her children. Chapter 25, verse 22, when she's pregnant with the twins inside her, they are jostling and she's feeling the pain. And maybe some of you, I've never been pregnant, so I really don't know what are some of the stresses you guys have, you ladies have. But here's this, I can't stand on it. And she said, why is this happening to me? This pain that's going on in her. The baby's jostling, and she went to inquire of the Lord. Then later, when the children are already born and the two brothers, one hates the other, and there's all kinds of conflict. In part, the problem is also the parents and the way they related to them. Rebecca said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with living, chapter 27:46. Rebecca has reached a stage in her life where she feels her life is so full of misery. My kids are driving me nuts. I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob, my favorite son, takes a wife from among the Hittite women, from women like this, my life will not be worth living. So she's really worried that things are going to turn out bad, and if Jacob marries a Hittite woman, oh man, I am going to die. Basically, she's not a very happy woman at this time in her life. And that's a portrait that we're given of Rebecca. And then think about what happens. Because of the way Jacob disguises himself and gets Isaac's blessing, Esau becomes so angry and threatens to kill his twin brother. Imagine that, threatening to kill your twin brother. Rebecca says for Jacob, you better go away for a little while until your brother's anger subsides. Right? So that's how the story works. So she said, go to your uncle Laban, then I'll send word to you and it's all right to come back. You better go away, but right now your brother is so angry, I'm afraid he might kill you. Remember, Jacob is Rebecca's favorite son. That's the story. Jacob goes. As far as we know, by the time he comes back, Rebecca has already died. So that short period of getting away in the end turned into 20 years. So poor mommy Rebecca, her favorite son, goes away and she never gets to see him again. All those years, I wonder how she was feeling. Never gets to see grandchildren through her favorite son. So in a sense, you could say Rebecca was chosen. She was chosen to be the wife of Isaac. And in that chapter 24, a wonderful blessing is pronounced on her. But if we think, evaluating her life purely from our perspective of what we consider a happy life, Rebecca's life was filled with a lot of disappointment. Her favorite son having to leave home and never gets to see him again. And yet, if we look back now, even greater distance, Rebecca is revered as one of the matriarchs. She is the wife of Isaac. And maybe some of you are called Rebecca too, right? It's a good name. It's a wonderful name. We respect Rebecca. She's honored in Jewish tradition and in Christian tradition, despite the fact that her life as an individual on earth had a lot of sorrow and a lot of pain. But she is still blessed, even if she may not have been blessed in terms of her own individual experience on earth. She is still blessed. And blessed because she forms part of God's story of salvation. It's through her line that we're going to, she's part of the line that leads to Jesus. So you got to look at it from the big perspective. Even though often in our own current experience, just like for Rebecca's own lifetime experience, she could have been a very sad life. Let me move on to the next generation. This is Jacob, Rebecca's favorite son. Remember, so he has to run away from his brother. He ends up living with his uncle for 20 years. Again, if you don't know this story, go back and read it. It's again a fantastic story. sometimes laugh at it. But just think about, he goes there, he meets this beautiful girl. One of the uncle's daughters is Rachel. Okay, let's read what the Bible says about these two sisters. Oh, hang on. I didn't have a... Okay, well, let's... Okay, in that story, Genesis 29, you've got... Jacob sees one of the daughters of his uncle Laban, Rachel, and he loves her. Beautiful. She's a beautiful beauty. And so he wants to marry her. So that's how the story unfolds. Asks for permission for marriage. And Laban, the uncle, says, okay, basically okay. But Jacob says, I run away from home, so I really don't have any money to give as a dowry, the equivalent of a dowry. But I'll work 7 years for you. No pay. Yeah, I work. That will be my dowry, if you like. And if you let me marry your beautiful daughter, Rachel. Laban says, okay. You know how the story plays out? After 7 years, yay, it's time to get married. So they have this wedding ceremony. And then that's what I don't understand. How they go into the wedding chamber, and it must be so dark. But what happens is, in the end, Uncle Laban sends in the other sister, Leah, to go and sleep with Jacob. And we are told, strangely enough, it's only the next morning when Jacob wakes up and says, hey, you're not Rachel. Who was I sleeping with? You're the other sister. Okay, so I really don't know how that happened, but that's the way it's reported. And so he comes up, what have you done? He says to Laban, I'm supposed to marry Rachel, and now, because we slept together, I'm automatically like married to Leah now, right? Our marriage has been consummated, even though it's consummated with not the woman I was thinking to consummate it with. And then Laban comes up with this story. No, you must always let the older get married before the younger. Not good for the younger to be married before the older. That's our tradition. Sometimes we hear modern echoes of that as well, our feelings. But Laban said, but don't worry, okay? Next week, just only wait 1 week. Next week, I'll let you marry Rachel again, if you can consummate your marriage with Rachel. So you're married to both of them, and he works another 7 years for Laban. But anyhow, so that's how the story works. Laban, in other words, uses deception. He didn't tell. Why didn't he tell? If he was so above God, why didn't he reason with Jacob in the first place? Hey, look, man, got to marry the older one off first. How about I give both of them to you? He could have been upfront about it, right? But no, that's not what he does. He uses deception, and that's what happens. Let me talk another thing about these two sisters. They are united at the end of this, later on in their lives. Both of them are united in one thing. They are united in their feeling of having been used and unloved by their father Laban. See, this is in Genesis 31, when Jacob now is thinking, it's time for me to leave Laban, because he's really been not a very good uncle to me. It's time for me to go home. Even though Esau is back there, and I'm worried about that, I think I have to get back. It's been 20 years, I need to go back. And Rachel and Leah give him their blessing. Yep, there's nothing for us here either. We have no share in the inheritance of our father's estate. In other words, Laban hasn't given them the dowry or anything like that. Does not our father regard us as foreigners? So both of these girls somehow don't feel very loved by Laban. Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Presumably that's a reference. He sold us to the way he negotiated us with Jacob. Surely all the wealth that God took away from our father Laban should belong to us and our children. So we're going to go and they leave. And so they're united in their feeling of being used and unloved by their father Laban. Laban, from his point of view, of course, never gets to see his many. Well, he gets to see his grandchildren, but never gets to live with them after they leave. Right? They never come back. So let's say something about the older sister, Leah. She was very productive because she got pregnant quite easily and then has children. But she felt unloved throughout most of her life. We know this because Genesis describes this. Firstly, let me say something about the first introduction to Leah. Leah has lovely eyes, but she's not physically as attractive as Rachel. I know NIV says weak eyes, and again you could translate that as weak, but the word really is soft. Soft eyes, and that can be a positive thing. So, for instance, the New Revised Standard Version uses lovely eyes, or tender eyes. You know, some people's eyes are like that, but physically her body was not as attractive as Rachel. Okay, soft or tender eyes. In the story, if you go back and read it in chapter 29, Leah gets pregnant quite easily and bears children, so she's a very fruitful wife. And yet, even though one would have thought that, I produced these children and, my husband would rejoice with me over these children, surely I should feel loved, yet she often felt unloved. Maybe Jacob never quite took to Leah. I mean, after all, he didn't intend to marry her in the first place, but she certainly felt unloved. So from her perspective, hers was, again, quite a sad life. Later, Jacob, when he speaks of Rachel, he says, my wife Rachel, and there's no mention of Leah. But we know Leah's sense of feeling unloved from the way she names her children. When she gives birth in chapter 29, verse 32 to Reuben, she says, it's because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now. What a poignant phrase. She's feeling unloved. She gives birth to the son, Reuben, and she's hoping, now that I've given birth to Reuben, this firstborn, maybe now Jacob will finally start to love me and really care for me. But given what she says about the next two sons, looks like she still didn't feel loved. Because one verse later, she conceives again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, He gave me this one too. So see, it's at least 9 months later when the second son is born, but even though after the first son was born, she thought maybe now she would be loved, she's obviously still not feeling loved. Second son is born and says, the Lord knows that I'm not loved. So He's given me, as it were, like a comfort, another beautiful child. And she named him Simeon. One verse later, again she conceived. You see, Lord has blessed her with a very fruitful womb, which in those days would be, wow, right? Should be a woman to be honored and admired by a lot. Wow, you're really quite a woman, huh? But her own feeling is, I'm not loved. I'm not loved. And we all know those sort of emotions in our own life. We may be blessed. People think we are blessed in so many ways, but in our own heart we feel, I don't really feel very blessed. Because there's certain other things going on in our relationships where everyone thinks I've got it all together, but they don't know how unhappy I might be for whatever different reason. Leah is a bit like that. So a third child, again she conceives. When she gave birth to a son, she said, now, at last, my husband will become attached to me. She hopes. See, this has been her hope ever since her first child, longing for her husband's love, but somehow never getting it. Because I born him 3 sons, so he was named 3 sons. So just in these 3 short verses, I think you can sort of see the kind of emotional misery that Leah endured. Okay. Number 4, verse 35. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, this time I will praise the Lord. So she named him Judah. Judah means praise. Not quite sure the feeling behind it, but it could be, finally she says, I praise the Lord. Just focus on the Lord. Maybe give up on ever hoping to win the love of Jacob. Maybe just praise the Lord. But anyhow, that's the picture we have of Leah. How about Rachel? Rachel, who was loved by Jacob. So she's the beautiful one, physically anyway. And so she was loved. So Leah wanted the love of Jacob, never seemed to get it. Rachel had the love of Jacob from the start, but yet we're given a picture of Rachel who isn't a very happy camper either. So she spent a lot of her time feeling jealous about her sister Leah. Jealous for Leah, who we know actually Leah was so unhappy. Why are you jealous of someone who's so unhappy? But she's jealous of Leah because Leah is producing these children so easily, and Rachel can't get any children. And Rachel's jealousy obviously would have made her life one of much misery and pain. She hurts herself, and in some ways hurts her loved ones maybe. When Rachel saw, and this is from the scripture, Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children. She became jealous of her sister Leah, who was producing children without trying. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Husbands, I don't know whether any of your wives have ever spoken to you like that. Don't have to answer here in public. And Jacob became angry with her. What? You think I can give children just like that? I'm not in the place of God who has kept you from having. Not my fault, that you can't have children. I don't think that would have helped Rachel very much. Being told it's not my fault. It sort of implies it's your fault. Anyway, we can see the marital tension between, even though Jacob loved Rachel, doesn't mean they always got along nicely. There was obviously tension in the marital relationship. Which marital relationship on earth hasn't had sharp words spoken? And then Rachel said, "Good, here we go. Have my servant Bilhah sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her." So this was part of the ancient custom. We're already aware of that. Sarah did that with Abraham, and so Rachel, I suppose, gives up on having children herself. So he says, "Have children through my servant," and so then they will be legally considered my children as well, and we can build a family through her. By the way, these children do count as part of the 12 tribes of Israel. Remember, these children, it's not as if they get left behind. Like Ishmael gets left, is not part of the 12 tribes of Israel. But these children that Leah and Rachel produced, together they produced the 12 boys. They form the 12 tribes of Israel. They actually come from 4 women, but they are the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, they're legitimate children of Jacob. Eventually, though, Rachel does have her own biological children. She gives birth to Joseph. Maybe that's why, try and excuse Jacob just a little bit. Maybe that's why Joseph became Jacob's favorite son. Because at last, his favorite wife, Rachel, had a child, Joseph. And maybe later in the story, Jacob favored Joseph, which led to a lot of problems. But to be a little bit sympathetic to Jacob is probably because that was Rachel's first child. But her second child, Benjamin, in giving birth to Benjamin, there are complications, and Rachel dies with the birth of Benjamin. And she says, she knows she's dying, and so she sort of says, this child is Ben-Oni, which in Hebrew means son of my pain. Son of my pain, or my suffering. But Jacob, who lives, of course, his wife dies, says, I don't want my son to grow up with the name son of his mother's pain, so changed the name to Benjamin rather than Ben-Oni. He's Benjamin, son of my right hand. Okay, so looking at the legacy, Leah and Rachel, I've tried to show how the story writer, in a few short strokes, paints for us a picture where both Rachel and Leah had their own sorrows and struggles and pain and disappointment. So they had a sad life on earth in many respects. I'm sure there were other happy moments, but it's their sadness that gets highlighted. But just think of the glorious legacy that they have left behind. 12 tribes of Israel, right? And the rest, the Old Testament. And even in New Testament theology, we talk about the 12 tribes. Rachel's sons, Joseph and Benjamin. One of her sons, Joseph, becomes prime minister of Egypt, second only to the Pharaoh. Her grandson, Joseph's son, Ephraim, becomes the name of Israel's largest tribe. Israel later on in their history are divided into the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom is the bigger kingdom, 10 tribes. Another name for the northern kingdom is Ephraim. It's Israel, but often you'll see in the Old Testament that's called Ephraim because of the 10 tribes, Ephraim was the biggest tribe by far. And Ephraim is the name of one of Joseph's sons, Ephraim. So Rachel gave birth to a son whose name would be used as a short form for the northern kingdom. Israel's first king, Saul, and the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, all from the tribe of Benjamin, one of Rachel's two children, a most respected lineage, okay? The tribe of Benjamin. So even though Rachel may have been pretty miserable at times on earth, her life did matter. Her life was of significance and blessing for countless generations after. And so maybe that's meant to encourage us as well. Maybe right now in our own lives we can't see the blessing. We can't see how our lives are of any significance. Let's take courage and comfort from a God who says our lives matter. We can and are a blessing, can be a blessing to many, many others. So let's live for this God and live to be a blessing to other people. Try our best, whatever way we can, to bless others, rather than we feel so down on ourselves or whatever our circumstances that we become more of a burden to those around us. Let's be a blessing. We're supposed to go to 12:30, right? Before lunch? I think that's right. So let me again finish what I put in your notes. Now let's focus on Jacob. I know I've already said quite a bit about it, but let's keep going. A story of Jacob. Jacob has to run away from home because of his brother Esau. Well, in part, Jacob is to blame. He tricked his brother. And that's why his brother was so angry. I've already mentioned, Jacob never gets to see his beloved mother again. I'm assuming he really loved his mother because the mother treated him as a favorite, so they probably did get along. But he never gets to see his mother again. By the time he comes back, there's no mention of Rebekah. So presumably she's passed away. There's no text in the Bible that mentions Rebekah's death, but when Jacob comes back, Isaac is there, but no mention of Rebekah, so presumably she has passed away. Jacob as a husband, I've already talked about the struggles he must have had keeping up with his two wives and their jealousy and their competition, and Leah feeling unloved. I wonder how many times she may have said to Jacob, "Why don't you love me?" Rachel, is recorded how she comes to Jacob, "Why can't you give me children?" Just trying to imagine now from Jacob's point of view how his life, why are some of the men smiling? But you can imagine some of the struggles this husband might have had with his two wives and trying to keep them happy. How happily married was Jacob with two unhappy wives? This is the story of Jacob. Nephew. Jacob as a nephew had an uncle Laban. And I got no time to take you through all the shenanigans that his uncle went through, but we already talked about how Uncle Laban tricked Jacob into sleeping with Leah. You mean, wow, what kind of uncle is this? And not only that, later in business, Laban would try and cheat Jacob out of wages. I can't remember, but in case I don't have it later, that's the story where Jacob comes to Laban and says, I've been working for you these so many years, and I don't really have you haven't given me a steady income because I've been working just to marry or give you a dowry for your two daughters. It was supposed to be 7 years, you turned it into 14 years because of this extra daughter. Now Jacob finally says, can you please at least let me keep the sheep that are considered less valuable, the flock, those that have spots on them. The pure white ones you can keep, those that have spots and speckles on them, that can I keep for myself. And Laban said, okay. The very next verse, he tells his son, for now, take away all those with spots and take them away 3 days so they aren't there. Immediately, all the spotted ones are removed. So, no spotted ones for him, And then comes the interesting story how the next generation of flock, there are some spotted ones. And in fact, God blesses it, so there are a lot of spotted ones. And Jacob does get it wrong. But you can see Laban now, he's trying even then not to give Jacob anything. Okay, you can have all the spotted ones. The next day, all the spotted ones aren't there anymore because the sons have taken them overnight. This Laban character is quite an interesting fellow. Okay, but this is the uncle that Jacob had for 20 years, lived with 20 years. So what kind of life would he have had there? So eventually he decides to flee home that has been his home for the last 20 years, where he found 2 wives. He leaves Laban, chapter 31. And he leaves because, obviously he doesn't really love his uncle very much. I don't blame him. He leaves secretly, no farewell. Hey Laban, I'm going. No, he flees. Jacob deceived Laban, the scripture text tells us. So now Jacob deceives Laban. Laban has been deceiving Jacob all the time. So the word is used, Jacob deceives Laban by not telling him that he was running away. So he fled with all he had, crossed the Euphrates River, headed for the hill country of Gilead. On the 3rd day, Laban says, Jacob has run away. Finally he gets it. Jacob has run. And Laban comes chasing after him, taking his relatives with him. Laban pursued Jacob for 7 days, catches up with him in the hill country of Gilead. So that's the way his relationship with his uncle was. Not a very happy one. One where he in the end just left secretly and quickly, didn't want to say goodbye. So that's Jacob's life. Not just as a nephew, but also as a father, Jacob, and his own children. He had a lot of problems as a parent. I think of the heartbreak that as parents we sometimes go through. Jacob had them, I'm sure. He had a daughter. We don't often hear this. We think of his 12 sons. He had a daughter, Dinah, Genesis 34. She was raped. Wow, what a heartbreak that must have been. So Jacob to suffer, your daughter being raped, think of the agony that would have caused him. He had 2 violent sons, so this is the story in Genesis 34, which I'm not dealing with, where Dinah is raped. The 2 brothers are so angry that this neighboring Shechemites have disgraced, have mistreated their sister. They end up killing all the guys in that neighboring tribe. If you don't know the story, deception is a large part of it as well. Just to briefly summarize for those of you who don't know the story, so if it interests you enough, you go back and read it. The guy who raped Dinah, to be fair to him, he says, I really love her. He would have argued it was consensual or whatever it is. And I want to marry her. Okay, so at least he wants to marry her. I know I got things wrong. I hadn't married her. I already had sex with her, but I want to marry her. He says, begs his father, can you please go and talk to Jacob and his family and get permission for me to marry Dinah? We get our 2 tribes. So in short, the fella wants to marry Dinah, and the sons, they had the family, they have a discussion. They say, okay, but on one condition. We can't let you marry unless you become like us. And it's our tradition that all the men are circumcised. So we will let you marry Dinah if all your men get circumcised. So this chap who raped Dinah, presumably his family must be very important there. He commands all the whole town, all the men must get circumcised because, I want to marry you. So they all get circumcised, and as the story goes, well, after the operation, all the men are very weak and in pain. That's when now these 2 brothers come and kill them off because they can't fight. They come and they kill off all the men. What a violent. And we know that Jacob says, I don't have the verse there. You read, Jacob says to his 2 sons, what have you done? How can you act so violently? We're going to bringing curse upon us. How can you act like this, murderously like this? Jacob had at least two violent sons. Again, what a tough thing that must have been for a father to cope with. Many of us as parents, we know that when our children do things that get them into trouble and get others into trouble and get us into trouble, we feel it so much. And it becomes part of our story and our suffering. Jacob experienced that as well. He was even deceived by his own sons. This is part of the story of Joseph, where Joseph's brothers sell him off to Egypt, and then they come back to Jacob and say, your favorite son unfortunately was killed by a wild animal. And so Jacob lived many years of his life thinking that his favorite son died a violent death at the hands of wild animals. So he lived without his son. Fortunately, at the end of his life, just before his death, he realizes that in fact Joseph was alive. And so he gets some comfort. But all those years, he lived with the grief of thinking his son was dead. And you read his words, where I have it in here, the text. No, I don't. Oh yes, I do. This is the Simeon one. I've already explained the Simeon killing the two sons who go and kill the neighboring. Jacob says to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me obnoxious to all the Canaanites, by your doing this and killing all those Canaanites. We are few in number. They join forces against me and attack me, and my whole household will be destroyed. So you can see Jacob was really worried at what his sons did. Who wouldn't be killing off the neighbors like that? Let's see what else I put up here. Although it's all there in the Bible for you. Okay, this is the one where the sons, Jacob's sons, deceived him. They got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, look, we found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's Joseph's robe. Jacob recognized it and said, yes, it is my son Joseph's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. Wrong. And then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but Jacob refused to be comforted. In other words, the loss of Joseph was so great a loss that he could never get over it. He refused to be comforted, and he said, I will mourn for the rest of my life over the loss of my son Joseph, till I die in the grave. So his father wept for him. And I suspect this was probably literally true. It's probably true for any of us as parents if we were to lose one of our children. Yes, there is a so-called mourning and grieving period, but I doubt if it ever really ends. You will continue to mourn the loss of your child, probably to the end of your time on earth. And that was the case for Jacob as well. Although right at the end he saw Joseph alive, so I guess at the end it sort of brought him a bit of comfort. Jacob flees home because of his brother. As a husband, he had his two wives, and the jealousy, in a sense that one of them fell unloved. As a nephew, Jacob had a terrible uncle, Laban. As a parent, Jacob had children who were violent and also deceptive, deceived him about one of his own sons, heartbroken by his sons. This is Jacob's story. And yet this is the same Jacob who received such a positive word of promise from God. And I suspect that's what most of us remember most about Jacob, because this is the famous promise which was given to his grandfather Abraham and to his father Isaac, and then repeated to him. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. I am with you, God said to Jacob. I will watch over you wherever you go. Those are beautiful words, and they're meant to give us encouragement and comfort. But I've been trying to get us to be realistic, and if we read carefully, the Bible is realistic, because the life of Jacob had lots of very unhappy situations that went on for years. So was Jacob's life a happy life? How do you describe that? Yes and no, right? Yes. It was a blessed life. But there was a lot of unhappiness in his life. Was God with him? Because when we think, if God says, I am with you, we somehow automatically assume that means my life on earth will be great. But the Bible doesn't seem to think like that, doesn't seem to reason. Just because God is with us doesn't mean life on earth is going to be everything fine, everything works well, good job, good children, good wife, everything. It certainly is not true for Jacob. But the Bible says God was with him during those 20 years with Laban. I am with you. So Jacob's story suggests that you can be chosen, because Jacob is clearly part of the chosen line. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. His name continues to be used in that phrase. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, says the God who appears to us in the Bible. So he's chosen. But this chosenness does not translate into earthly blessing of a happy marriage, trouble-free parenting. That's not the way his life worked out. But Jacob is a permanent place in God's history and story of salvation. So from that point of view, he truly is blessed. And we are blessed through his line as well. Let me see what else I got here before I take a question. Oh, yes. I should mention something about Esau, because I said I would. Let me jump ahead to this. A story of Esau and Edom. We've got the angry. Remember, Esau was very, very angry because his brother Jacob tricked him out of what he thought was his father's blessing. And Genesis 27:41, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near, and then I'm going to kill my brother Jacob. Of course, Esau, his father Isaac didn't die for another good number of years. But anyhow, by then Jacob had run away, so he got through that. But Esau was very angry. We hear him very angry in chapter 7. But next we see Esau in chapter 33. And Esau, after these however many years that Jacob has been away, maybe some 20 years, Esau now has gotten over his anger with his brother. And we see him as a forgiving brother. This is the story where now Jacob comes back, wonders whether Esau still wants to kill him, bows down to the ground 7 times. But Esau's response ran to meet Jacob, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. What a beautiful picture. Esau is the one who initiates this. He runs, embraces. Now, does this language ring a bell to any of you? In another biblical story, someone who runs and embraces and kisses. Oh, some of you nodding. Parable of the prodigal son. Wonderful. Yes, many other readers have noticed that same picture. I wonder whether Jesus would have known the story of Esau, whether, loved the language of this and used it in his own story of parable of the prodigal son, where the loving father comes, runs, kisses, hugs. And if so, Esau has been seen, this picture of Esau, picture of the forgiving love, the embracing love. Forgiving Esau. What a wonderful model we have of him. I mean, the earlier part of his story, Esau is quite a poor chap. Can't be bothered, what's the use of my birthright? Just give me a hot soup. And he seems like I can't be bothered kind of fella. Gets angry, wants to kill. But that final picture we have of Esau is a positive one, a beautiful one. Embracing his brother. Okay? Forgiving Esau. Esau asked, what's the meaning of these flocks and herds that, I've met? And Jacob said, I want you to find grace or favor in your eyes, my Lord. Here's Jacob bowing down to Esau. But Esau said, don't worry, I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. No, please, said Jacob, if I have found grace or favor in your eyes, please accept this gift from me. See, here's this Jacob having to still negotiate that, no, I know I treated you badly, I really ought to make it up to you and give you all this. And Jacob says, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God. So here's again another picture. Esau represents God's face. And in the parable of the prodigal prodigal son, the loving father, does represent God's forgiving love. Esau is presented so positively in this closing chapter that describes his life. To see your face is like seeing the face of God now that you have received me favorably. Now think about that. In the story of Genesis, in the book of Genesis, we've got a God who embraces Esau. We've got a very inclusive God. That's the word I've used here. Why do I say that? Well, number one, because the story of Esau ends with him in a very positive light, expressing such love and grace, typical to God's love and grace and forgiveness. That's a very positive picture of Esau. And the reason I use the word inclusive is we must not forget that Esau becomes the father of many Arab nations, the Jordanians, essentially. Esau becomes the father of Edom. That area is the Syrians and the Jordanians today. So they would trace their particular roots through Esau. Not only that, the book of Genesis takes time to include in chapter 36 the account of Esau, the generations of Esau. And then you see a list of his descendants, 12 tribes. The generations of Esau, sorry, I'm getting mixed up with Ishmael. But it's still part of that same sort of line here. The generations of Esau get listed. So, you see, even though the story as it moves on now is just going to follow the line of Jacob, because the Bible can't tell the story of every single family that's born on earth. The Bible follows the story of Jacob, and then Jacob's son. And then it narrows it down even further, and then Judah, and then the other sons of Jacob begin to recede out of the story, because there isn't space to follow everybody's story, and we go all over the place. But before we say goodbye to Esau, he has a section in the book of Genesis where it says, these are the generations of Esau, and listing down his descendants. And although we don't know what their stories were in the end of earth, God includes as part of his inspired written word the generations of Esau. I think that speaks to us of God trying to say to us, even though Esau's story isn't going to get penned down in the Bible, the rest of the Bible, I've never forgotten him. He's part of my story. All humans are part of my story. I'm the God who has created all the peoples of the earth. Adam means mankind. Adam doesn't mean Israel. Adam means humanity. And the God of Genesis is the God not just of Israel, not just of Christians, but the God of all humanity. Family line of both brothers is listed. So in a sense, we could say, thinking of using our language of chosenness, Esau was not chosen. Jacob was chosen. The twin brother, Jacob, was the chosen line from whom Jesus would be born, not Esau's line. So Esau was not chosen in that sense. But that doesn't mean he was rejected by God. He's still part of the family of God, still included in God's heart, in God's concern. Esau finds a place within God's embrace. We should never forget that. The book of Genesis doesn't forget it, and we shouldn't either. Okay. I think that's it. Yeah. So any questions or comments? Oh, I've only left 8 minutes, so sorry. Alright, Benita wants to ask, is it Benita? But if you have a question, since she's already asked before, I'm going to give you the privilege. If you haven't asked and you would like to ask, going once, yes? Right? Okay, Benita, since let's let someone else ask.
Genesis 12:16. To your offspring I leave this land. Does this include the Arabs and all the descendants, Ishmael, as well as Esau and Genesis 12:7, sorry.
Genesis 12.
7.
Genesis 12 verse 7. This is where God is speaking to Abraham. The Lord appeared to Abraham and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. And the question is, does this offspring include all of Abraham's offspring, or only the offspring that came through Isaac, and then Isaac, Jacob? So my response would be, although the focus of the Bible in the end is going to concentrate the story on that particular line, Isaac, rather than Ishmael, and then Jacob, rather than Esau, and then from Jacob, his 12 sons, but then with those 12 sons, it's going to eventually narrow down only to Judah. And by the way, Israel today is primarily Judah. It's from the word Judah that it came up the shortened form of Jews. Jews are primarily Judah. Because some of them say I'm from Levi. Some of them say I'm from Benjamin. Because Levites, in the end, became part of every tribe. They were Levites because they were priests. They became part of all the other tribes. I mean, it's an interesting thing. So there are some Jews today who would say, even though I'm Jew, even though technically I'm from Judah, actually my line is I'm one of the Levite family. All those, the Kohen sort of line would say they are from Levi. But the other tribes, I mean, we call them the lost tribes because they disappear. And I'm digressing. But my point was the story in the Bible inevitably has to narrow down because it wants to narrow down to the line that leads to Jesus. And Jesus' line comes through Judah. Okay? The line, Judah, David, all from that tribe. But how about all the others? I hope I've said enough from Genesis, the fact that the biblical writer does take time to include a positive picture of Esau and include his generation, even though it's not going to expand on their stories. I think that's a way of God saying, yes, these are Abraham's offspring. So, I do bless. And to cut short, although I'm jumping over a whole sort of questions that people ask, I think the God that we're presented with in the book of Genesis is the God who wants to bless all children on earth, all peoples on earth. That's the strong emphasis in Genesis. He is not just the God of Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, David, Israel. He's the God of all peoples, including Ishmael and Edom, Arabs, all peoples. That's the message of the book of Genesis. And in fact, the only three major monotheistic religions of the modern world, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all believe strongly in a monotheistic God, in other words, not a multitude of gods. They all speak of Abraham as their forefather, the Abrahamic blessing, if you like. They see themselves as part of that blessing. 4 more minutes. Anyone else besides Benita? Pastor Moyho, welcome back. I hope your sister-in-law is feeling better. She was not able to be with us last night because her sister-in-law was not well.
Thank you, Pastor Gordon, for an excellent seminar. But can I ask you a question? Maybe I like to think that some of us share this question with me. There are passages in the Bible that say God blesses. But there are also passages where fellow men issue words of blessings, right? Is there a difference between God's blessings and human blessings?
Okay, is there a difference between God blessing and humans blessing one another?
Yeah.
Well, my immediate answer has got to be a difference because God is God and God is different from us. So sure, God's blessings will be different. But if you ask me, in what way might they be different? Okay, so I think, although I can't maybe cite a verse from it, I would say if God blesses, as opposed to say my own dad, I hope that one of the differences is that it's going to mean, I mean, if God actually appeared to me in the way my father might physically appear to me, and I knew that this was God, often, God appears in disguises as far as we don't realize it may be God. If I knew it was God blessing me, rather than just you or a close friend, although I would value the blessing of my fellow human beings, if it was God blessing me, if I believed it was God blessing me, I assume that's going to be something I treasure all the more. Right? So it would have that difference. It's God blessing it. But I think you are asking more along the question of, are blessings irrevocable? Are they automatic? I'm not sure if you're asking that, but if you're asking the question of, okay, so I've said, Isaac pronounced a blessing on his sons Esau and Jacob, but as far as their lives were concerned, it didn't seem to come true, right? But maybe that's because Isaac is just a human being, and so he pronounced these words of blessing, so they don't have the same power to automatically come true. But if God were to pronounce a blessing, will they automatically come true? If that's the question that you're asking, I would have thought personally it would seem to be more likely, right, if God said it. But if I look at the stories of the Bible, and I look at my own story, I don't think that's the way God works it out. Because in a sense, God blessed Abraham. It is God who spoke blessing to Isaac, God who spoke blessing to Jacob. He repeats the blessing to Jacob. So it's God clearly says, I will bless you and help. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, I've already shown you Jacob's life on earth is not blessed in the way we interpret blessed. But it is blessed in the way he has been a blessing down through history. So God's word of blessing has come true. Okay, so I take that back. Yes, so God's word, because it's God's word, definitely came true. But I think I'm responding more to the practical question where many people think, okay, so if God blesses me, and then we're thinking that means my life on earth is going to be blessed, and we define that in terms of happy marriage, good children, everything is working out. That certainly was not true for Jacob, who was blessed in that big sense, blessed, but in our normal way of defining what is blessing, not very blessed. Is there a difference? I said obviously if it's God, everything that God does is different. But in terms of that, the way we apply the thinking, and I tried to make this point last night, Scripture and statements can be applied in edifying, good ways, but that same word can be misunderstood or distorted and applied in non-edifying ways. And we need to be careful about that.
I appreciate your point that the stories in the Bible actually invite us to reflect upon our own reaction or response to some of the realities in life. But may I just stay on a little bit about Genesis 12, God's call upon Abraham to make his name great, to bless him, and that through him the rest will be blessed. Was that also a statement of God's purposes as well? While when he says, I'm going to make a name great, etc. Not in the sense of, I don't immediately think of material blessing and so on and so forth, right? That's not my thinking. I'm just thinking that when God issues these words of blessing, is that also a pronouncement, or is that also a revelation of God's plan